Thank you for coming along. The mics they should all be working. Only two can be on or one can be on at a time, I think, so I'm controlling it at the moment. So welcome to this meeting of the South London Waste Partnership.
Sorry, Chair. Apologies, please.
Are you chairing the next one? Next year? Who's taking over next year?
Yes, it'll be me as you.
Oh, right.
I'm very general, Chair, as to busy talking, I don't know.
Okay. I think we have a full complement from the start this time, which is great. All 8 councillors, I think. That wasn't a dig, I'm just reading. So we have all 8, so that's good. Welcome. And I think that, shall we just do quick introductions as well? We have got some members of the public here just to hear who people are. I'm Mike Branch, the chair of the South London Waste Partnership Joint Committee this year, and cabinet member for environment and street sweeping in Merton.
I'm Anita Caccioli. I'm the interim assistant director of public space at Merton.
Amy Dimitrescu, Democratic Services at Merton.
Councillor Stuart Collins, cabinet member for Cleaner Green, Morden.
Councillor Stuart King, cabinet lead on transport and environment in Croydon.
I'm Steve Arles, Director of Public Development, Croydon.
Mike Maggie, Head of Finance Operations and Resident Support, Shared Finance Service for Sutton Kingston and the Finance for Partnership.
Deborah Flintoff, Corporate Level Contracts at Kingston Council.
Councillor Liz Green, Leader of Kingston Council.
Councillor Hilary Gander, Portfolio Holder, Environment and Sustainable Transport at Kingston. Andrea Keys, Contract Manager for the South London Waste Partnership.
Councillor Richard Kerr, Vice Chair of the Sutton Environment Neighbourhoods Committee.
Councilman Irvine, Chair of the Environment Committee in Sutton.
Matt Club, Assistant Director of Environment, Sutton.
Annie Baker, Strategic Partnership Manager for the Waste Partnership.
John Haynes, Communications Advisor for the Partnership.
Charles Baker, Commissioning and Strategy Manager for Public Space at Merton.
Councillor Martin Wilson, Cabinet Member for Regeneration, Housing and Transport at Merton Council.
Thank you very much. So, you're welcome. We don't have any apologies for absence, I think, because we're all here. Is that right? Bring apologies. Are there any declarations of interest before we start? Or to state what the minutes of the previous meeting, which was on the in September, late September in fact, are they an accurate reflection of the meeting on that night? And any matters arising from that? Not covered in the minutes and the agenda. Okay, thank you. I'll sign the minutes and we'll move on to item 5 rather, which is phase A and B contract reports. That's you, is it? Right, okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 5, this is the phase A and B contract management report for quarter 1 and quarter 2. Section 2.1 of the report, it covers contract 1, which is our current residual waste contract with Viridor. Total waste handled by Viridor under contract 1 for the reporting period was just over 109,000 tonnes, which is a 3.2% reduction in residual waste from last year, and this gives boroughs a combined saving in excess of £350,000 year to date. The contract continues to operate effectively and there are no issues to report. Section 2.2 of the report is a summary of the performance at our HRC sites. The customer satisfaction at the sites continues to be well over the 80% contract target, and queuing time also improved in round 9 of the survey. There were over 86% of customers surveyed waiting less than 5 minutes to enter the site. The HRC sites are down on their performance last year, and we think this is largely due to a significant drop in green waste following quite a dry summer. Garth Road and Kimpton are both performing below the 70% contract target. Garth Road is currently at 69%, and as I said, partly due to the drop in green waste, and that was 10% drop at Garth Road. At Kimpton, the site achieved a 4% reduction in residual waste, which is positive, However, that was countered by a 17% reduction in green waste, and they're coming out at 66% recycling rate for this year to date. In order to try and increase recycling rates, Veolia are running some trials at the sites. A couple of these separating out the paper and the card to improve the quality, and also they're looking at more consistent off-takers for the rigid plastics, which is a problematic material at the moment. But it is a tough market at the moment. There's low values being paid for recyclates, there's a low demand for recyclates, and the contamination thresholds are getting tougher. So it is a difficult market for them to operate in. But they are making changes to improve. The next contract is contract 3. This is our recycling and composting contract, also with Viridor, and this is operating well. No issues to report on contract 3. And then finally, the commissioning of the ERF, part 3 of the report. The commissioning of the ERF is ongoing. The facility has now passed the majority of its commissioning tests, the takeover tests, and there have been no technical or process issues to report to date on the ERF. Okay, so the recommendation is to note the contents of the report.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I must say, actually, I've been over to Factory Lane quite a lot recently, and I think the staff are actually really are brilliant in terms of getting people to put things in the right places and very helpful in assisting. But whilst I was there, it's something that we're going to try and concentrate on Croydon that I want to share with you all, is that we want to get more reuse, and I'm thinking that as a partnership, every time I go down there I see lots of fridges, I see lots of electrical goods, and I see things that I think definitely can be rescuable. And what I did was a little experiment with the staff there. I had a couple of speakers that were still pretty good, with a couple of speaker stands, and I put them there, and I said to them, can you make sure you leave it at the front, or can you put it in the side there, because I think somebody will pick those up and take them. So had a good conversation, and went back the next week, and sure enough somebody had seen those and said, wow, those seem to be quite good. I mean, the only reason I got rid of them was because they didn't fit the particular room that I've got now. My wife doesn't like my loud music, but anyway, so I've got a bit quieter. So anyway, they were picked up and reused, and what the discussion we've been having with London Reuse and so on is that it would be better if we were coordinated as a partnership, perhaps online, with all goods that we have, so that charities, for instance, that are rehousing people and that might need fridges and might need other bits and pieces of some decent furniture that sometimes turn up there, is that rather than just see it all just thrown away, we have a little bit more control and try and see as a partnership if we can get people to reuse more. And I think this is a real good thing, a good news story that the comms team can work on. And so what Steve and I will do is we'll share what we're doing in our February cabinet about reuse, to see if we can all team up across all our HRCs. And so maybe, I don't know what other people think, but maybe it's something for a workshop before we said we'd get something up and running, but it's just a suggestion.
In terms of reuse, we do have a reuse shop at the Kimpton site in Sutton, but it's really the capacity of that. You're right, not all the reusable items can go there because there's a finite capacity. And so, I think, anything to increase capacity and increase outlets for reuse would be of interest to Veolia. We want to do it together with Veolia, wouldn't we? But I think it's a...
Well, particularly, as I say, with an online shop, if somebody could go on the South London Waste Partnership shop and say, well, this is at that place, charities can go into it, other people that, perhaps don't want to buy something new, but, it's quite trendy in some areas of London, and where people like that vintage stuff. So it's what unfortunately, as you can see from my haircut, I'm a bit vintage, but so I quite like going to places, and I have on a couple of occasions picked up something that I thought was really nice, and twice my wife made me take it back, but on the third occasion we've still got this piece of really decent furniture that just needed a sand down and a revarnish that was really nice.
It's very popular.
Yes. and certainly with the bulky waste collection, Veolia are given an undertaking to reuse more and look for reuse of that more and disposal costs rather than just bring it all up to go for bulk. So we can take advantage of that as well, see what their outlets are.
And yeah, it's funny you say that. That's one of the things going to our February cabinet as well. Is the Surrey apparently Surrey Council has a good link with all the charities, and so rather than Veolia go and pick it up, what happens is that they can also go to the website and say, I'm disposing of this and bulky waste, but before I do it, I've got a fridge and a freezer that are perfectly good order. And then it circumvents Veolia collecting it and the cost to us or the resident, because the charity go round. And again, I did an experiment with a fridge and freezer with Bromley and Croydon Women's Aid, and I said I happen to have two perfectly working, and they actually came to collect it directly from me, so I didn't have to pay for a bulky waste charge, didn't have to get Veolia involved in it. But if the councils and the South London Waste Partnership can be the conduit for that, then we can perhaps circumvent all our bulky waste charges.
Thanks. Not on that point. Separately, and I'm not sure whether this is the place to raise it, but I'm really, you'll know that we've been looking at pedestrian and cycle access to Villiers Road, and we think we've coming up with a semi-workable solution. But I'm wondering whether the other tips have pedestrian and cycle access, because it's something that really concerns me that we don't at the moment at Villiers. So I just wonder if you could give us a bit of information on that. The other element was the data that is in this report is excellent. It's really good to see, but with the customer satisfaction surveys, I know that the stairs are too steep is not relevant to Villiers because we don't have steep stairs. So it would be good to get in the public domain the breakdown. So I'm sure that you'll tell me it's available to me, it's available to all of us in the partnership, but actually I think the breakdown on the customer satisfaction surveys by tip should be available, so that everyone can see what's happening in their local area rather than the collective across, you don't go to the Croydon, one of Croydon's tips if you live in Kingston. Probably I will not allow to, I would imagine, if you use the permit system that we use, because you can't come to ours. So I wonder if we could get that in the future.
Okay. So in terms of pedestrian access, some of the other sites do have pedestrian access. It's very much, you have to manage it on a site-by-site basis, because it's depending on the design of the site. Obviously we've got the trial going ahead in Villiers Road, so we'll see how the results from that go, but we do really have to take it on a site-by-site basis. But the other sites do have an element of pedestrian access to most of them, not all of them. In terms of customer satisfaction, we do collate that information obviously by borough, and we communicate that in regular contract meetings. I'm happy to bring it to this meeting as well if you think that's of interest.
I mean, I just think it should find a way into the public domain, whether it sits on one of these reports or not. I'm less worried about. I would just like it to be in the public domain, so whether it's on the South London Waste Partnership's website or a methodology for people seeing what is the satisfaction on, because sometimes when you've got 6, one that is doing particularly well is mirroring one that's doing poorly, or 5 doing well, one, and actually we need the public to be able to see which ones are doing well. I think would be useful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just on another point, I saw the document with the Q&A with the Environment Agency officer, which I thought was quite good and quite interesting, and I think it's reassuring to see all the checks and controls that the ERF will have. I just wanted to know if you could elaborate a bit on the, I know there was a bit of slippage with the deadlines with the ERF. Are we on track? Should we be worried if we can delay it a bit? If you possibly want that.
So in terms of the process that we're going through now, we're going through the commissioning process, and that is a series of takeover tests that will look at each individual element of the ERF. At the moment, we're looking still towards the end of this year, so it has, I think it's slipped by a couple of weeks in terms of the commissioning process, and it may move into early January, if dependent on how they progress in the next couple of weeks. But so in terms of the technical, the process element of the ERF, we're happy with the progress.
Chair,
Sorry.
and just to endorse the point that Councillor Green made about the site-specific information, and in particular I'm interested in how long people have to queue going to the different sites, because we provide a certain level of site-specific data on the second page of those colourful charts, but we don't around customer satisfaction and queue lengths. And I'd also make the same point I made at the last meeting, which is if you look at round 9, which is the latest round of responses, it shows again that there have been reductions in the total number of responses. So fewer people are participating in those, which obviously potentially undermines the accuracy of the messages that we're receiving from our residents and customers. And then the point that Councillor Avalon made, again, I'm slightly concerned that we aren't seeing progress in line with expectations. I think the original go live was August, and then it was pushed back to October, and now we're in December, and we're currently in commissioning stage, and we've got some takeover tests, and it looks like the beginning of 2019, and it all sounds a lot like drift to me.
So, as you say, we were initially the deadline we were expecting to work towards the end of August, and a lot of the issues have evolved from the issues with the Lagan constructing, the civils engineers, construction people going bust, and that has created extra work that was necessary to reduce some of the work on the drainage and the other elements of the site that needs to be completed. So in terms of what we're seeing, we're absolutely satisfied that those works are being undertaken and that the commissioning testing is ongoing and being followed robustly. The independent certifier is on site regularly, and Andrew's meeting with him as well. So we can't be certain that either the end of December date will be met or any other specific date will be met, because clearly if there are any issues thrown up in the remaining tests, we will expect that to have an impact on the final date. But it's not just a process that's drifting, it's a process that's iterative and ongoing, and clearly the number one priority is making sure the testing is robust and that the facility is absolutely ready to be operated by Viridor once those tests are passed. So.
Thank you. No other further questions? Do we agree the recommendations that we note to the report? Agreed. So, item 6, which is the budget update. Who's presenting with that person?
Quite short, this one. This paper provides an update on the partnership's budget position at month 7, October of the financial year, and the projected outturn for 2018-19. As per the previous quarter, the projected outturn position for the year of month 7 is that the forecast spend will be as per budget. Therefore, there are no variations to report at this stage, and the recommendation is to note the content of the report. Is there any questions?
Yeah, it was just a question on the internal and external advisors. The budget is 175k. The spend so far, after 7 months, is 1,472. So the predicted outturn is still 175,000.
Yes, I mean, one of the issues with preparing the figures is that I do like to do it on actual, so it's accurate, and it does rely on boroughs recharging each other. Right. So that can sometimes be not as timely as I like it, so it's not always as accurate as it is, but there is, within that particular budget head, there are £25,000, which always happens at year end for Kingston for providing financial and accounting advice on the Phase A. There's also £25,000 for Croydon providing financial advice for the Phase B, HRRC, and Phase C. So that will be spent. There's also internal legal advice, which is usually at the spend of £25,000. And I know that we've already received the bill for £8,000 for the governance review. That's happened since this report was written. So I'm nervous when I see a figure that low compared to the thing, and I would like to see the recharging happen more often. So, I mean, I'm happy to chase the barrels up, which I do already, because it's, as I say, it does make me nervous when I see a figure that low compared to the budget. But at this stage, there's nothing to indicate that we will be underspending.
Can I just come back on that?
Yes.
Because obviously you said there's 3 lots of 75, of 25, sorry.
Two
Two lots of
25s and 25 for
and, yeah,
advice.
so 3, 20,
Yeah, that's right.
25s, which is obviously 75.
Yeah, that's right.
1,000 plus 8,000,
Yeah.
plus the 1,000 that's in there, that still doesn't come to 175, so you're obviously expecting some more to come in
Yes.
between now and year end. That's still 100k short.
Potentially there's some variable payment work once the phase B, the ERF goes live, and also there's a potential annual review and arbitration costs that may be chargeable to that.
Can I just say, I think it would be useful to if the boroughs, and obviously Kingston is one of them, so if I can help with that, if we were to recharge on a more timely manner than leaving it all till the end of the year, when you're trying to tie up the finances of the partnership for the year end. So I'm happy to take that away for Kingston. I don't know whether
The IAA already sort of says that big boroughs are supposed to recharge on a quarterly basis, so it's just basically reinforcing that and passing the message. But I know that there have been staffing changes in one area that has probably impacted on what we're seeing. I will chase it up.
If you need help in Kingston, let me know.
Kingston will
Could include a commitments column in this
Yeah.
report so that even if it's not recharged.
Either that or the alternative is I could also put in a profile, but sometimes profiles can become a whole industry in itself to create a profile, but that would help with some of it.
I think with this one paragraph would have explained that it is the point, you know, obviously if you've spent over half the money at year 7, month 7, that makes sense. But to see such a low figure as actual compared to the budget and expect no variance, a paragraph may have helped.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on the financial report? Do we note it therefore? Very good, thank you. Right. The item 7 then, the draft budget for 2019-20. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a draft budget for next financial year, and as we set out at the start of the report, it's a requirement that we bring the draft budget for discussion to this committee at the previous committee meetings. We've had that discussion, and then we approve our budget by the 31st of December as set out in our eligibility agreement. So the draft budget is set out in the core activities table underneath paragraph 2.1. This shows you the approved budget for last year, the draft budget that we brought for discussion, and then the proposed final budget in the final column. The increase that we are proposing for the year coming is 61,200, and that incorporates survey work, which we don't do every year, but we'll plan to do next year. We've done it before, usually on a biannual, slightly less frequent basis, so this would be, I think, the 4th set of partnership-wide surveys we've done, and also includes increases to staffing costs as a result of either borough increment processes or inflation increases. The approved budget in 18-19, the staff resources at that time was an indicative level of staff resourcing based on anticipated grades for the new posts that we were putting in for the new contract management requirements. So the draft budget increased proportionately for that area because some of those grades were higher than anticipated in the initial budget. We've got our internal and external advisors and accounting budget in there as well, and the other budgets categories that we've already seen in budget update so far. In paragraph 2.4, we've set out the staffing structure which is included in the SLWP staff resources. That includes a potential new post, which is the waste strategy manager. We discussed this at the last committee, and what we've done is have a look at how that post would operate, and we would intend that would include a commissioning role, which would reduce our reliance on some of the internal and external advisor costs. So the post remains in there. That would be pending approval from the boroughs through our normal processes. but in terms of the budget impact, we will either need to carry out work through using advisors or that post. We've also got sums in there for document and data management as last year, and the communications budget in 2.6 includes the additional survey work planned for next year. So the recommendation of the report is to agree the proposed final budget for the activities as set out in paragraph 2.1.
Any questions on the draft budget?
Sorry, you must think I've turned up at the first meeting and asked a load of questions. I can promise you I wasn't in this committee when it was first formed all those years ago, but I have missed a few. It's actually paragraph 2.3. I can't make sense of the figures because it does say 1.46k reduced from 125k in 1819, but 1819 was 175k. And it does mention obviously those two cross charges that you talked about that come in at the end of the year, for the financial and other services. But I can't understand how that reduction from 175k this year to the final budget of 96.5, that paragraph doesn't sort of explain how that's been reached to me.
So we reduced the budget initially because last year's budget was higher, anticipating that because of the particular phases we were reaching in the contract. So, for example, phase B, we would need additional external advisor costs this year that wouldn't come to bear next year. And then when we've looked at the possibility of the waste strategy post, we've been able to reduce that further in the next monthly review. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but we've got 175 there is the internal and external advisor costs, but excluding the two sets of 25k, which are for the services that we pay for through.
If we're looking at the 96,500 or from getting one to the other, we've reduced the 175 by 50,000, which was the one-off cost, and then we've reduced it further by another 30,000, which was the external advisors, which we will use the new post to provide the information instead.
Okay, you haven't reduced it by 50 because it's less than 50, because 175 down to 1.
Yes, 50 and a further 30.
Yeah, but 175 minus 50 is 125, not 127,500.
Then there'll be inflation.
Sorry, it might be down to.
There'll be inflation.
That's inflation added in.
There'll be 2% inflation as well.
That explains it,
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I just want to ask a question about the communications budget. Obviously, you've got £40,000 budgeted for the survey, which sees this figure over double in terms of previous years. How much did the last residents' survey cost, and how is this actually broken down? Because it seems a very high figure for a resident survey to be undertaken.
Yeah, so as you say, that this would be the fourth survey that we've
Yes.
done, so I've got all the previous ones here with me just
Yes.
in case anyone wanted to see the detail of it. So they were conducted by Morden in 2010 and again Morden in 2013, and because of the costs we went out to B&G Research in 2016, so we are due to do the fourth one next year. The latest one with B&G was around sort of 35,000 mark. The reason it appears quite expensive, these are really sort of scientifically robust surveys, so they go out and they survey a minimum of, it's about 1,100 people, but obviously they meet certain quotas, so you have quotas by age, gender, income, etc., housing type.
Yeah.
So obviously when you first start off those surveys, you speak to anyone who's happy to speak to you, but as you get near the end, you're having to fill your certain quotas. So it might be that you speak to 10 people who you ask them the filter questions, and you say, thanks so much, but actually, we've spoken to lots of people like you. So it becomes quite a expensive and complex task, but what it does mean is it means you end up with data that's really, really robust, and you can be very confident that you can extrapolate it across the whole borough and the whole partnership.
Good. I was just asking a follow-up. You said obviously face-to-face. Is any of this done electronically, given that you've obviously got major survey companies now where it's all done electronically, and there's obviously very little face-to-face, and obviously how would that compare? I'm just obviously interested to know whether we use that kind of method of communication.
So it's interesting actually when we did the survey in Sutton, looking at the evaluation of particularly the service change last year, that was a face-to-face door knocking, because one of the biggest quotas we wanted was housing type, because of the different ways that people interact with the waste and recycling services, mainly based on the type of house they live in. So that was very effective for that. For this type of survey in the past, actually, these three have been done with telephone, computer-aided telephone interviews, CATIC it's called, and the phones kind of round. It's all very sort of best practice. Ipsos Mori have kind of developed this approach. Increasingly, telephone surveys are becoming less efficient because not many people have landlines in. Well, fewer and fewer people hardly come to do it. So we may look at whether face-to-face is a more effective approach. What you do need to be really careful of, we've got a really valuable sort of, eight-year trend that we can look at now, and if you start messing around with methodology too much, you need to be careful because how comparable is that data?
But obviously your surveys have evolved a lot over that time. Telephone-based seems not the most accurate form of communication. A lot of them now are internet-based. Some of the holding companies, especially YouGov, it's all done over the internet.
What I would do is I wouldn't go out to the market with this is what I want to do. I'd go out to the market saying this is what I want to achieve. And you're absolutely right, methodologies are moved on. I would let them come back to me with suggestions about the best way to achieve it, and that would be part of the evaluation process is to look at the methodologies being proposed. And what I would be saying is I want to achieve the highest statistical reliability that I possibly can.
Any further questions on the project? So the was agreed. Thank you. Using the technology to get that there. The communications update. You again.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this update focuses on the period between September and November of this year. If I can I'll just draw your attention to a few highlights in the report. So section 1 provides an update on the Plastic Planet campaign. This is a campaign that was just launched when we last met. Just to remind everyone, it was a campaign focusing on plastics, the fact that 79% of plastic waste ever created is still in the environment, particularly looking at the impact that has on seed and wildlife, etc. Trying to encourage people to reduce their use of single-use plastics and also recycle as much as possible. We used a series of short 15-second videos that were actually created by RAP, and we sort of tweaked them for our purposes. And we delivered those videos through a targeted Facebook advertising campaign, which ran from the 3rd of September through to the 5th of November. Paragraph 1.2 provides you with the results. So sort of the top line, we've got a report, a very detailed report sitting behind this, but provides with the top line results, which on the whole are really, really positive. So during the campaign we reached, that is the number of different individuals within our 4 boroughs that saw the campaign, 177,876 individuals, and there were just under 1 million impressions, so that's the number of times those individuals saw the campaign on their feed, on their Facebook feeds. Just under 1,200 click-throughs to the Waste Partnership website, which is pretty good actually. Our target was 1,200 and we fell short by 6, which is a shame, but anyway, still pretty happy with that. And that was supporting information on the partnership website. The 10-second views is probably the most pleasing figure, 141,672 10-second views. So with Facebook you can actually track how long people are watching, how long they're hovering over the video for as they scroll through their feed. So that clearly shows that really had an impact, those videos, and really capturing people's attention, because to get someone to look at something for 10 seconds on Facebook is quite an achievement. And you can see the cost per 10-second view was 4 pence, which is very good. I mean, anything under 10 pence, you're performing pretty well. So overall, I think, really pleased with that. You can see the borough breakdown figures. Merton, it performed particularly strong, probably because it coincided with a very significant change in your recycling and collection service, so that's probably why it generated more traction in Merton. But all the boroughs, I think Merton's cost per 10-second view was 3 pence. All the other 3 boroughs was 4 pence. So it performed very well across all 4 boroughs. So moving on from that, the next plan, section 2, I've outlined the next idea, which is something called destination recycling. It's only a working title, but it's the best I can come up with for now, but I'm looking to have other ideas as well. It's taking on board feedback we got at the last committee, which is around the end destinations, about making sure people understand where their recycling goes, what happens to it, building that trust. that we're doing the very best we can with it. And it also feeds on the success of the Plastic Planet campaign. So basically we know paragraph 2.4, and this is an example where some of our previous social research work has been really useful. Paragraph 2.4 shows that in 2010, 31% of residents in our 4 boroughs had serious concerns that not everything we collected for recycling is actually recyclable. In 2012, we asked, sorry, I should say 13, the report was published in 13, the study took place in 12. 2012, only 27% had serious concerns, and that then fell further to 19%. So you can see there's a real sort of increasing trust amongst residents that their council is doing the right thing with what they sort out. And in the communication strategy, we have a target to try and reduce that further to 15%. So it really supports one of our core objectives, is that trust element. And we know if we want people to recycle more, we need them to have trust that we're doing the best that we can with that material. So what I'm looking to do is to commission a specialist film production company to produce a really high quality short films that's 4 or 5 minutes, looking at the journey that different recycled materials go on, where they go, like I say, really engaging, and also out of that to produce 10-second trailers that we can then use on Facebook and other social media platforms to drive traffic to that film. So that's the plan, to sort of try and recreate the success we had with the Plastic Planet campaign, but driving people to a short film about where the recycling goes. We'll be looking to get the film ready for March, using existing funds from the communication budget, and then in April 2019, using some new funds from next year's budget, we'd look to launch the targeted social media campaign to support that film. Moving on from that, section 4, looking at the HRCs, just a quick update on some work that's been going on right there to support a new trial scheme at Villiers and Kimpton, looking at trying to sort of clamp down on the illegal use of the sites by road traders taking commercial waste to their sites, and asking people to use certain types of vehicles to register online before they visit the site. So we've been supporting that with posters and press releases and social media and a copy on the borough websites, etc. That actually went live yesterday on those 2 sites. So seems to have gone fairly well from a sort of a comms perspective. There's been a reassuringly amount of noise to suggest that people have heard about it, but not so much noise that you think, oh, something's gone terribly wrong. So we'll obviously keep a close eye on that. Just moving on to section 6 and the Beddington ERF. Sorry, more section 7 actually. Just making point that there was a visit to the ERF by members of this committee on the 7th of November, and that included a presentation and a question and answer session with the Environment Agency officer who's responsible for the site. And as you mentioned, Councillor, there's a sort of a note of that session attached to the earlier item. And the main focus at the moment around the Beddington site is supporting the creation of a virtual visitor centre. We're making good progress on that. That should be ready in the next few weeks for people to share and have a look at that and start making some comments. So that will be the main focal point. It's a really engaging site. It will be sort of interactive. It will be, I think it's 15 key stages of the process mapped out on a kind of graphic of a typical site. And you'll click on each stage and there'll be videos and explanations of what's happening. There'll also be clear links through to the emissions monitoring data, which will be uploaded on a fortnightly basis, and clear information about how you can book a physical visit to the site if you want to come along and visit the site in person. So that's the main focus at the moment on the Phase B work. So the recommendations of the report are to note it, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, really pleasing, John, about 2.2, about the film being commissioned, because there is that level of cynicism, particularly from opponents of new recycling systems and the wheelie bins, are saying that this stuff is really unhelpful for the newspapers that did those articles. But the fact that we can prove where our recycling goes to is really good. And also there's probably an avenue as well that some of our schools are quite interested in getting a group of children, that might lead on a project at the school to actually visit some of our sites. And I know that's a little bit of a task, but if we could even get a couple of schools to go and see where it goes and see some products that are made from that recycling would be really useful. But I'm really pleased about that. And what we'll do when that film is out, I think all of the councils here, we can go to our comms departments and get them emailed to, because most of us have got 20,000-30,000 residents on our systems. We can send that short film out. So I think it's a really good initiative. That's a really good. One thing around the household recycle centres and regarding our communication around textiles, I think we need a bit more of an explanation of what we're doing with textiles. There's been some criticism that people are taking things like towels and bedding that is clean and that is textile to the recycle centres, and there's allegations that they've some of the staff there told them to put it in the non-recycling. So I think we need to be clear on making sure what textiles we take. The fact that they've got to be clean, obviously, but clearly we need to tell residents what textiles we don't take. So I think if we could concentrate on that one a bit. And finally, just with the ERF in terms of the emissions, really pleased that that's going to be publicly accountable and that will be there for the public to see those emissions. But when I spoke to the Environmental Agency, it was quite interesting that when they said what the level of the highest level of emissions that is allowed is what that was comparable to, would be a good thing to actually put out on the because there was the story about, well, the emissions coming out are no worse than the Mayor's New Year's firework display in terms of the actual emissions that come from that. I think so that the public understand what the level of emissions is, to put a comparator on there, and obviously an honest one, is to say that is it comparable a month of emissions to so many vehicle journeys, for instance. That sort of information would help residents understand what emissions are coming out. I think that's really important. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, that was a bit long.
Can I just echo all the points made by my colleague? I also wanted to congratulate you on a very good report. I mean, I think the Plastic Planet campaign, looking at the numbers and the cost, it proved to be quite good value for money. So if hopefully we can replicate that. And I know that we talked in last year about the need to raise awareness of recycling amongst people of my age. So I think that's obviously social media is quite a good and easy way to reach them. So hopefully we'll be supporting further campaigns like this one. I also know there's videos. And just on the pilot scheme, I mean, I saw the numbers, and there's residents in Sutton that are going to Kington over 100 times a year. So I think I welcome this pilot scheme that hopefully will save us a decent amount of money if successful.
Thank you, Chair. I also like the idea of the film and the trailers. I just wondered a couple of things. How you communicate with the different boroughs, just with the press teams, I think it's mentioned, but I'm not quite sure how that happens, and also how you communicate with us, because I'm pretty sure I promoted the previous one about Plastic Planet, because it very much attunes with what we're trying to do in our borough. In Kingston about single-use plastics, so it fitted in very well. But I'd be worried about missing it and not being able to help to promote it. So I was wondering about that. And I was also wondering about what happens after that. You know, does this committee discuss the next campaign? Is that on the agenda to come, say, in May or something?
So to answer the first question, how we work as communications teams together. So obviously over the last couple of years, the main focus point has been on service changes across the boroughs, and we've had fortnightly service change comms meetings with myself, with Veolia Comms, and with each of the boroughs has got a comms lead, and also most of the boroughs also have someone from the corporate comms team, and then also from the waste team with the kind of engagement hats on as well. So we get everyone in the room on a fortnightly basis, and those meetings have worked really well. We are in Sutton, we've moved to a more sort of business as usual, meeting up with Martin on a more like a monthly basis, whilst the fortnightly meetings continued in Merton and Croydon. Obviously with Kingston, we'll be having those fortnightly comms meetings as well to sort of support the service change in the borough. But we had a big workshop last Thursday where all the comms leads got together with the idea to look at the Year 3 comms plan and to discuss ideas and debate what that was going to look like. So that would be coming round to everyone as sort of a revised version of that. And to kind of implement that, what I'm proposing is that we sort of start trying to get a business as usual format where all of the boroughs start coming together every sort of 4 weeks or so to review the implementation of that plan. But just to reassure you, I've got very close links with all the constituents across all the boroughs. In terms of how information is filtered down, it's a really good question because I tend to leave it to the boroughs sort of, because it's the boroughs comms teams that tend to know those processes and that kind of filtering down and how and when to do it, etc. But I would, if there's any big sort of information, I would contact them directly and make you aware of any sort of partnership campaign like this. So it's a bit of a sort of a joint effort really. And in terms of planning going forward, I mentioned a common strategy, which we had one for 2017-18. One of the main reasons that I want to commission the social research is because there are 10 themes that this identified, one of them being that 16 to 34-year-olds are really bad at recycling. It's a real worry, because you would think they would be better because they've grown up with recycling around them, but actually they're not. They say their lives are too busy and they haven't got time to do it, it's too complicated. So it's a really interesting document. It all comes out of the social research that we've done. I'm not suggesting Councillor but what I want to do is obviously do the social research, test how we've done against our objectives, because we've set very measurable objectives against each of those themes. For example, reducing the 19% down to 15% of people that have concerns that their recycling is actually recycled. So I will come back to this committee with those results and also a refresh on the common strategy, using the results to see how we've done and also suggesting how we move forward and what the next set of campaigns and the next set of themes should look like.
And the timescale for that is when?
Well, I'm hoping that obviously the budget for the social research isn't till next year, but I'm looking to commission it in the first quarter of, January through to February of next year, so that we can, from April, get straight on with it, get that survey work done, and then bring a strategy back, probably in the sort of summer. And I think the destination recycling campaign will sort of see us through to that point. Obviously, we're going to develop it up to March and then launch the social campaign sort of April, May, June time. So we'll have that running whilst we're planning our next step.
Thank you. Will the video be ready for the 2nd of April, do you think? Or is it in next year's budget to pay for it?
No, so paying for the video is in this year's budget, but the Facebook or the social media promotion of it is in next year. So the idea is to get the video ready for March. Obviously we can get it up on our websites, etc. But in terms of using those trailers, that will really kick in from sort of April time, because that's when the money will be available for that campaign.
So we can have it running before the meeting next time. Screening.
Yeah, as a screen, popcorn and
Okay. Thank you for that. Any further questions?
Chair, I just had one brief point. I very much welcome the report and in particular the proposal around the video. In terms of the Plastic Planet campaign, perhaps for future campaigns, it might be helpful if we have some targets against which the performance data can then be measured, because whilst I recognise that these figures look impressive, it's always useful to have the target that you're seeking to achieve known in advance of the final performance.
Yeah, apologies. There were some targets set, and they were reported to management group in a more detailed report. I just provided a summary, but I'm very happy to share the table setting out all the targets and the actual performance of everyone. I'll send that around.
Okay, so we note the report. Thank you for that. And move on to our last item, which is the risk report. Alice presented first.
Thank you, Chair. So, this is the risk report. In terms of background, this report is summarising key risk areas for the waste management contracts overseen by this committee based on our team risk register, Previously, we've got a full risk register and presented that to the committee. This report summarises the key risks that should be noted at committee level. The full risk register is available on the if you would like to see it. The key risk areas here are areas that are included in the report because they're considered to be strategically important, and that might be, for example, because they're high scoring in terms of impact or likelihood or change in score, or other bearing on our activities. So I will run through these now. The primary issue is around the recycling materials market changes. So over the last year or more, there have been some really significant changes in the global recycling markets. For example, in terms of China's changed import requirements, and some of the coverage of that is one of the things that we're seeking to make sure there's clear information in terms of those comms plans that we've just discussed. The changes in the markets do have an impact on borough budgets. Some of our material generates income depending on the recycling sale value, and obviously also has an impact on our contractors recycling income that's built into financial models in our contracts. So the impact of the worsening level of income for recycling has to be managed through our usual budget and contract management processes, but clearly risks around quality of recycling are also for us to manage. So we're finding that because of the changes in the market, reprocessors are becoming increasingly stringent about the quality of the recycling that they can accept and use to make materials, and that's because there's a cost to taking contamination out, and so in terms of preserving or protecting the value of material, that's really critical. We're doing quite a number of things to protect the quality of our recycling. One of the things at a high level is having a consistent approach right across the partnership area to what can and can't be recycled. It makes our communications easier, makes it easier to run region-wide campaigns, which is important. Any material that doesn't meet contamination thresholds, it can be sent to specialist sorting facilities, and the poorest quality material that we collect typically comes from communal containers where it can be difficult to identify who might be putting the wrong material in the wrong bin. That can make communications work hard to target, so we're working to learn from best practice elsewhere and sharing what we're doing to improve contamination and those types of collections. And typically we collect those on separate collection lines, which again protects our other material. We're closely monitoring those materials and working processes to manage that contamination. And for the future, we're looking at how we can best incorporate this into all of our communications work. The next section talks about the recycling value changes and the impact on our contracts, and obviously financial issues within contracts can have significant impacts on contract performance and likelihood of disputes, and ultimately contracts can operate where they're financially sustainable. So this is just to us that these kind of pressures have to be carefully considered when we're formulating our approach to procurements, and the changes in entity exposure to the recycling market. I mean that we'll be focusing on that when we're looking at commissioning new work and how we make sure that our contracts are structured to protect us from these kinds of impacts. The recommendation of the report is to note the context.
Are there any questions?
Hi. At a recent committee, we decided to investigate for our recycling on the go, as we call it, so for our street recycling, a kind of a processing which can cope with mixed recycling rather than having separate bins. So that's our favoured approach, so it's still got to be investigated. I hear what you say about risks of not being aligned, and I just wanted to raise that in case anybody had any concerns about us stepping out of line. I mean, we are also going to be looking at it just in case it confuses our own residents, because obviously we want them to separate their waste when they're at home, but it's okay when they're out and about. We will deal with separating it when they're out and about and they put it into street bins. So yeah, just really raising it. I don't necessarily expect an answer straight away, but just wanted to be transparent.
Any other questions or comments on? Okay. Therefore, we note the report. Thank you very much. And that concludes our business. We meet again on the 2nd of April here. Again, the last one here. Next one in June will be in Croydon. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your attendance and safe return. Is that right?